Good morning and hello, everybody. This is Jim Ransom with another session of Morning Jim Poetry. The date on my copy here is September 30th, which means October's coming right down the line. And we're going to try to review some great American verses. We're going to concentrate on the poetry of Robert Frost and Billy Collins. Frost is perhaps the quintessential poet springing from the New England soil, and in a sense, he was the voice of 20th century American poetry. Collins, perhaps, is the Robert Frost of the 21st century American poetry. He's been a bestseller with more than one of his books, and has been poet laureate already in the United States. He is a poet of free verse who never rhymes, but he produces stanzas of very original stuff with a twist at the end. Let's take these poets in order and start with Frost. As his fame grew during the time that he wrote his longer poems, his books were widespread. But then as he got older, he returned to writing some shorter poems, and some of his pithier and most original pieces, in my view, were written when he was an older guy. I'm sympathetic with the older guys. Sorry about that. But here's one of his really very interesting poems. It's called A Considerable Speck. A speck that would have been beneath my sight on any but a paper sheet so white, set off across what I had written there, and I had idly poised my pen in air to stop it with a period of ink, when something strange about it made me think. This was no dust speck by my breathing blown, but unmistakably a living mite with inclinations it could call its own. It paused as with suspicion of my pen, and then came racing wildly on again to where my manuscript was not yet dry, then paused again, and either drank or smelt with loathing. For again it turned to fly, plainly with an intelligence I dealt. It seemed too tiny to have room for feet, yet must have had a set of them complete. To express how much it didn't want to die, it ran with terror and with cunning crept. It faltered. I could see it hesitate. Then, in the middle of the open sheet, cower down in desperation to accept whatever I accorded it of fate. I have none of the tenderer than thou collectivistic, regimenting love with which the modern world is being swept. But this poor microscopic item now, since it was nothing I knew evil of, I let it lie there till I hoped it slept. I have a mind myself, and recognize mind when I meet with it in any guise. No one can know how glad I am to find on any sheet the least display of mind. That's very cleverly done, and rhyming in addition. Quite a poem, I think. Very original in theme and content. How often does a poet write about a bug so small no one can be sure it's really a living creature? So That's a good start with Robert Frost, I think. Now, here's another one of his later poems. It's called Gathering Leaves. And it's in this copy of Robert Frost that I've had since the 1950s. And it was printed, unfortunately, on high sulfur paper, and it's beginning to turn yellow. But I still want to share it with people because the poems are so good. Now, this poem is very appropriate for this time of year. It's called Gathering Leaves. Spades take up leaves no better than spoons, and bags full of leaves are light as balloons. I make a great noise of rustling all day like rabbit and deer running away, but the mountains I raise elude my embrace, flowing over my arms and into my face. I may load and unload again and again, till I fill the whole shed. And what have I then? Next to nothing for weight. And since they grow duller from contact with earth, next to nothing for color. Next to nothing for use. But a crop is a crop. And who's to say where the harvest shall stop? I've felt that way many times when raking leaves. It won't be long before many of us are doing our own leaf gathering this year, and hoping for mild, sunny weather and particularly no wind while we're doing it. That kind of condition is easier to arrive at here in Pennsylvania, where I'm speaking from, than it is in, let's say, Kansas, where out on the prairie, does the wind ever stop blowing? Well, yes, occasionally. And that's when you better rake leaves. Now then, I think we need at least one more poem by Robert Frost, if I can just find it here. It's called October. And October's right on our doorstep, isn't it? O hushed October morning mild, thy leaves have ripened to the fall. Tomorrow's wind, if it be wild, should waste them all. The crows above the forest call. Tomorrow they may form and go. O hushed October morning mild, begin the hours of this day slow. Make the day seem to us less brief. Hearts not averse to being beguiled. Beguile us in the way you know. Release one leaf at break of day. At noon, release another leaf. One from our tree, one from far away. Retard the sun with gentle mist. Enchant the land with amethyst. Slow, slow. For the grapes' sake, if they were all, whose leaves already are burnt with frost, whose clustered fruit must else be lost, for the grapes' sake, along the wall. That poem is so enchanting. It's so enchanting indeed. October, as I said, is where we soon will be, and I hope we can love it, or at least admire it as much as Robert Frost does. Now then, I want to read one more poem, and that's going to be by Billy Collins. It's going to be called Lakeside, Cottage. Now if I can just find it. Oh, by the way, I did find it, and it's in this book, one of his more recent books. It's called Whale Day by Billy Collins. And the poem is called Lakeside, Cottage, Ontario. When I mentioned to you on the phone that I had just witnessed a flock of Canada geese flying in a V only a few feet above the surface of the lake, you asked if I had taken a picture. I told you no, because the phone was up to my ear as I waited for you to answer, and also because it rarely occurs to me to take a picture of anything. So let me make a picture of the geese for you now. There were at least 30 of them, appearing quite suddenly, just after I dialed your number. From behind the trees by the shore they came, now heavy with the greenery of midsummer. And they flew from right to left, like a text written in Hebrew, almost touching the slightly ruffled water as they passed by the dock at the end of the lawn. You know, the dock with a little flight of stairs that disappears into the lake, which made it easier for your parents to go in for a swim in the cold water before they both died, only months apart, as if Jack followed Mary's lead. Otherwise, they might be sitting here now, in the 2 chairs by the picture window, maybe holding cups of morning coffee. As all the geese sailed by, heading who knows where, as close to the water, each holding its position, the leader pointing the way with its neck extended, as if it were pulling the others along. That's a typical poem by Billy Collins, a great poet. And maybe he'll be considered the 21st century Robert Frost. I don't know. I used to revel in the geese and ducks at the city lake down by Council Grove, where Marcia and I had our summer cottage. They were at their best when on the water or on other people's lawns. For obvious reasons, we preferred to watch them at a distance, but they're beautiful creatures. That's it for today. Hope you enjoyed the fare from Late Frost. That's what I call the poems by Robert today. And those from Billy, who is still alive, still with us, and much admired. See you next week. Bye now.